Hello and welcome to Divinely Empowered with Antonia. Today we have Brad Olsen, who is a award-winning author who's written 10 books, including Modern Esoteric, Future Esoteric, and Beyond Esoteric. He's a regular on some of the biggest shows in the esoteric and ET phenomena, including Coast to Coast. He's been on Ancient Aliens and even Beyond Belief. So welcome, Brad.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's good to talk to our friends across the pond.
Yes. And Brad is one of the speakers at Mount Shasta event Promise Revealed that we're going to be doing shortly. So I wanted to get to know everyone who is going to be talking there and learn some of their amazing information. So yeah, I'm excited to interview you and find out more.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Mount Shasta, beautiful sacred mountain. I've been there dozens of times. I've climbed it. I've explored the lava tubes around there, and I think there's some very discernible energy with that mountain. Maybe even so far as to say there could be higher intelligences living within the mountain. I've certainly seen aerial phenomenon at Mount Shasta, as well as other mountains in the Cascade Range. And it's interesting, Antonia, that most UFO sightings around the world take place above, at, or around volcanoes. And I've seen very interesting lights and movement around Mount Adams up at the Esoteric Ranch with James Gilliland and Crater Lake. All of those are Cascade Range volcanoes. Some of the most visible UFO sightings take place just right outside of Mexico City. The volcano Popocatépetl, maybe I didn't get that right, but millions of people have witnessed UFOs coming in and out of volcanoes. Maybe the heat isn't a big deal to them. Perhaps it's an energy source, but they're going in and out of the side of those volcanoes, or sometimes right down into the cauldron. So how they do it, I don't know, but it's interesting, and I've seen it with my own eyes, especially up in Mount Adams, just at night, ships coming in and out of the side of that mountain there.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we can't go there, so it's a good place to keep away humans if they did want to do so. So that's one thing, I guess.
That's true. And when I was at Esoteric Ranch, I was there speaking at the Ground Zero conference a few years ago. And I was there for a few days with some mountaineering friends and said, hey, let's go climb it. And we rented the crampons and got the permits and everything. Time didn't allow us to get to the summit. But what I did do is get to about 10,500 feet, just above the tree line. And we went over to the west-facing slope of Mount Adams and looked down into this area where we had seen the night before all these comings and goings. And I can tell you that it definitely wasn't flashlights or Jeep headlights or anything like that, because that west-facing slope of Mount Adams is a very inhospitable lava landscape. It'll even tear up your shoes, hiking boots, with the sharpness of the lava rocks.
Wow.
So we get back down, and I talked to James Gilliland about that side of the mountain. I said, yeah, you're right. There's no way those are Jeep trails or anything. There's nothing back there. It is very off limits, like a zone of silence. And I said, has anybody ever gone back there to see where these lights are coming and going? He goes, yeah, about 2 years ago, some guy like you just wanted to see it. And he had a couple days. So he went backpacking, carried all his stuff with him. And you got to climb over lava walls and stuff. It's not an easy task to get back there. So I think it, for a good reason, is this off-limit zone, because for humans to go back there is very difficult. I said, well, what did he see? And he said, well, when he came back after a few days, he was white-faced and wouldn't talk about it. I said, well, you must have got it out of him. He said eventually he did open up. He said he got back there and he started getting these telepathic communications that were saying to him, turn around, go back. You don't belong here. You're trespassing, leave, turn around now. And the closer he got, the more intense those telepathic messages came, till finally he turned a corner and he saw what he described as a door, a great big opening to some kind of hangar, perhaps where these craft were coming and going. And then he started getting headaches and pounding in his head, just turn around, leave, you don't belong here, go now. And finally he did, but he got to witness that there was some kind of door there. Maybe they cloak it holographically in the daytime, but he got to see it, and then finally opened up to James and said, yeah, I wouldn't go back there if I were you. It's pretty inhospitable. And I felt like my head was going to explode. So yeah, there are ways to keep humans away from certain areas. We think, oh, wow, there's 8 billion people. There's no land left untrodden, but
there is.
Yeah, there is. And then 6 years ago, I went down to Antarctica, and I can tell you there are large swaths of land down there where humans have never been.
Oh, really? Did you actually see? So, I mean, the common idea is that everything's covered in ice, but then other people are thinking maybe Atlantis is there, pyramids are there. What did you experience, and what's down there then?
Well, that's a big question, and that's the nature of my 11th book called Esoteric Antarctica. I hope to have it done by this time next year. And let's just say, when I say there are unexplored lands, I do mean under the ice as well as above the ice. There are still mountains there that have never been climbed. I was just along the Palmer Peninsula. So a little geography lesson, South America sticks down like that, and then the Palmer Peninsula sticks up like that. We took a sailboat down there for 26 days and pretty much explored the northern portion of the Palmer Peninsula. And in those areas, yeah, it's very well traveled because that's kind of the tourist zone. We saw cruise ships down there and some other sailboats, but only during the season of mid-November to early March. And then, for example, now in the middle of winter down there, it's all shut down. There's only 1,000 people that work on the bases who live down there. And this is the 5th largest continent of the world. So again, this notion of grossly overpopulated, well, Antarctica's got a lot of room. And so the unexplored areas are not only some of these very hard to get to deep inland areas along the Transantarctic Mountains and along some of the mountain ranges on the coastline, but more importantly, what they find below the ice. And I do a presentation called The Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica. I'll be flying to Dallas on Friday to give this talk at the MUFON Symposium this weekend. And one of the slides I show is that they've done sonar scanning of the polar plateau and other major ice fields and found that there's lakes down there, there's rivers that flow under the ice, and there are large domes. And nobody knows what's going on down there. They're even finding new species of life under the ice there. So this is one of the great unknowns. It's like the greatest depths of the ocean and what's under the ice of Antarctica are the last really, truly unexplored areas of planet Earth.
Wow. Do you think that's where Atlantis is, or what do you think about Atlantis?
I do. And another book I'm working on is called Underwater Archaeology, and that has a lot of Atlantis stuff. I don't think Atlantis was one singular location, although they could have had a capital that Plato described outside the Pillars of Hercules, which is the Rock of Gibraltar. And indeed, there was a fisherman scanning near the Azores Islands and came across a pyramid. This is just fairly recently underwater. So that's some underwater archaeology. But as far as Atlantis being in Antarctica, I think it's quite possible too. And my colleague Michael Salla, before my trip down there, he was telling me some places I might want to check out if I could. And one of them was this. He sent me some GPS coordinates for an area. It was actually not on the Palmer Peninsula, but in New Schwabenland area. And it showed the perfect symmetry of a city. It was kind of blurry. Hopefully the resolution will get better. It's funny with Google Earth. and especially in Antarctica, there are some places they'll show you and they're mind-blowing, and they could very well be Antarctica. One, which I show in my presentation, looks like two pyramids out of Central America, a perfect 4-sided step pyramid with steps going down the middle on both sides. And Mother Nature does not create this perfect kind of symmetry, just like the layout of what looks like a city grid that Dr. Salla sent me. So I think there's a very good chance that there is, I wouldn't say the city of Atlantis, but perhaps outpost colony, or just in the same way that America, the USA doesn't have just 50 states. We also have Puerto Rico and Guam and a few other far-flung locations. I would say it could be something like that. But another thing about Antarctica is it's really 2 continental land masses. You have East Antarctica, which is very, very old, ancient, 3 billion years old, which was once part of Gondwana land and broke off from Pangaea. And in the fossil record, you can find megaflora, megafauna that connects to Australia, to India, and to Africa, when those were all connected. And those animals then became isolated and then mostly went extinct. But in the fossil record, you can determine that they did at one time have a land bridge to be able to cross over.
Wow.
And not only that, but Antarctica is home to several dinosaur species that have only lived in Antarctica. Now it's a frozen tundra. I mean, there's no way a cold-blooded reptile could live in those climates. There are a lot of sea mammals, such as seals and whales, and of course penguins, that live on and off the island, but really nothing lives on the land. The only animal is a tiny little insect, and then there's no trees or bushes or really anything green. It's very desolate, 99% covered in ice, but there are a lot of volcanoes there. It is the most volcanically active continent in the world, so these geothermal vents would have the propensity to open up these large under ice domes too. So that too gives rise to speculation that other forms of life could be living on those vents, as they do in the deep underwater environments where they're found also.
The deep underwater environments. Are these mer people, or is this, what's this?
Mer people?
Mer people.
Mermaid people, yeah. Well,
yeah, mer people, mermen and mermaids.
I'm not ruling it out, but I would like to see some evidence. Seen some pictures every now and again. This is the study of cryptozoology. Actually, in my book, Future Esoteric, I have a whole chapter on cryptozoological creatures that have been found. And sometimes you get these things washing up on the ocean that have never been identified, come from the deep water. I have a picture in that chapter in Future Esoteric of some giant flat fish that is about 30 feet long, and there's all these people standing around so you can see the scale of it. Never before seen species. Just like they've also found some species of fish in the ocean that they think went extinct with the dinosaurs, and they caught it off of South Africa a few years ago. And so the mysteries continue to reveal themselves, especially in the form of these crypto creatures. So let's not rule out the mer people.
What about dragons? People keep telling me dragons are coming back. Any awareness on that?
Well, dragons, kind of similar to Dracos, which are reptilian creatures. And we were going to talk a little bit about ETs in the show. And I would say that, yeah, the Draco reptilian species has been around on Earth for thousands of years, not right out in the open, not showing themselves, although occasionally they do. That's the legend of the Mothman in West Virginia. In fact, they got a big statue of a winged Draco in a town in West Virginia where they keep showing themselves. But they're very similar to a dragon in so much that the winged reptilian Dracos have wings. They have a very long snout like a dragon. They don't spit fire, but they might have a serpent tongue. And, well, they got a taste for adolescent humans too. And they've been around for a long time, but they live primarily underground, and they're very few in numbers. But in this field of exopolitics, and we can get into the deep meaning reason why they've been mostly extracted out of Earth now. There has been an underground war that has been waging for at least 20 years. And it was decided by some of the benevolent ETs that these reptilian creatures were just interfering with our development. Now, even though they are born or hatched here on Earth, so therefore that's their workaround of the prime directive, which is states that you can't interfere with developing civilization such as Earth. Their workaround was, well, hey, we were born here as well. But they have abilities that humans do not have, such as they can operate in the fourth dimensional realm. So they can make themselves appear and disappear. To us, that just seems like a magic trick. But if you understand dimensionality, then it's quite possible that they're able to do that. They're also highly telepathic. They're very manipulative. They lie through their teeth to have their own agenda. And this is what we call service to self. And because they have been manipulating humanity for so long, it was decided by the Federation of Benevolent Planets that Earth has a problem. This is called Earth's dilemma, that we have been manipulated so hard that we will not stand a chance against them. So the decision was made, all right, we'll help out Earth. And it was a very narrow decision. We barely won because most of them just say, hey, leave it alone. But there is knowledge that in 300 years from now, that Earth would become a tyrannical planet. That it'd be like the movie Avatar, where we would just be going to planets and mining it and destroying it. And it would be a real scourge in our solar system and our galaxy as well. So they could see that in the timeline, that this negative energy was coming from Earth. This is about 50 years ago. So in 350 years from then, and then 9/11 happened. And with all the misinformation we've been giving about that event, which did have ties to this control of planet Earth. First, they have to control the humans. Then with high technology, they'll start using humans to invade. And this was their plan. The Federation saw, look, this isn't going to work out. We got to work in the timeline that we're in right now and just extract these reptilians, get them off of planet Earth. And that has been ongoing.
Wow.
And my understanding is they're down to about 1%. So now all these global elite who have relied on them have used they're also using the lower dense fourth dimensional abilities to summon them in dark rituals. And then these reptilians will appear. I tell you, that would be very believable if you and I were saying in one of these ceremonies. I have a picture in Beyond Esoteric, several images of what these ceremonies would look like. And unfortunately, they also tie into human sacrifice. And
Are they the same as demons then, would you say?
Well, I would say they were demons when they were known in medieval time. Just in the same way that the benevolent aliens could have been seen as angels. It's just a matter of semantics, just a matter of what word we call them. But certainly they've been around. And actually in the Cryptozoology chapter, I have quite a few images of some reptilian bones. Also in the EBE chapter, describing who they are, what they're up to. And all the darkness that they have brought to the human race. So if we were able to get rid of them entirely, and my understanding is we are pretty much at that point, then humans, who are the master of the surface of this planet, would be able to decide their own fate without being interfered with. So right now, you see how exposed the cabal is. They're just scrambling for cover because they lost that fourth dimensional backup. In terms of how they have used humans, I call the humans the cutouts, and these reptilians would shadow them in the fourth dimension. So most of us wouldn't be able to see it, but every once in a while you can. And for very influential, powerful people, they get shadowed. And then some of them are in the black eye club. Remember all the triangle over the eye and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, those are tiny little reptilian beings called vril. And they will go inside one of the eyes. That's why they remain black and blue for a month or longer. But they'll lay a little proboscis, like an egg, inside the eye, and it goes right to the brain, and it actually will take over that person, who changes incredibly in their personality. They have a voracious sex drive. They lose all their compassion, and they promote this agenda, this reptilian agenda, which has looked like it was going to take over and fully enslave the human race. Fortunately, it has been mostly defeated, but we're not there yet. We're still going through this underground war, this control for planet Earth. And a lot of that control is the control of the mind, that they want to control the narrative to get us to believe in certain things. Because if you believe that you need to do this thing, if you believe that you need to give up your rights, then you are building the constructs of your own prison. Mm-hmm. This is a very occultic thing that they do to get us to submit to their agenda. That's right.
Golly. So, but you said that things are actually on the up and up. Project Bluebeam, what's coming up?
Well, this could be the final showdown. Because anytime you hear the word blue in a project, that refers to extraterrestrials, the blue sky. I think it is the connection. So Project Blue Book, which is the compilation of all ET materials, and Project Bluebeam, which is this fake alien invasion, not just an alien invasion, but also they would put the Messiah in the sky after some great sky drama battle takes place, in which case it's mostly fake, not entirely though, because they're supposedly they're going to bring out these chimeras, which have been created in underground laboratories, these cloning laboratories. And I worked with Randy Kramer, who is secret space program guy. He's kind of dropped out of the scene for a while, but for 5 or 10 years ago, he was speaking at conferences, and he was saying that he was an advocate for Project Bluebeam. I said, how could you possibly advocate a deception like that, Randy? And he's a military man, pretty high ranking too. And he said, well, you got to understand that our military in the US has so much hardware that they have backward engineered, as well as free energy technology, 0 point, the TR-3B triangular craft, which now is kind of antiquated, but they need an excuse to roll it out. And he said Project Bluebeam would be the rollout. So we would see incredible technology, perhaps very real technology in this sort of battle with the insectoids. Randy Kramer said that the insectoids are very highly intelligent, but they're hive mind. So they all think the same. They all take their orders and follow through with it. Unlike humans, which have free will on this planet. And there's a whole narrative about free will and why we need to maintain that here on planet Earth. But as far as the insectoids, Randy Kramer said that they volunteered, that they would be this ET race that just gets annihilated, kind of like the War of the Worlds scenario in this Project Bluebeam. And how realistic would it be if we're all out at a barbecue and we're watching the sky show and oh, look at that one's getting shot down. And then some big insectoid arm comes flying right down and we're like, whoa, it's real. It would be real, but it's still fake. See, this is what I'm going on a lot of interviews right now to try to tell people that it could be very, very realistic, but in essence, it's still going to be fake. And then the Messiah shows up, right? Whoever that is. In Western countries, it'll be Jesus in the sky. In Muslim countries, it'll be Mohammed. In the Far East, it'll be Buddha. In India, it'll be Krishna. And these messiahs will show up in the sky, and you'll actually be able to see their lips moving. And they have this technology now called voice to skull technology. We'd actually be able to hear what they're saying, but perhaps it's going to be a little nefarious, such as, Antonia, go to your nearest FEMA camp and check in and get all the inoculations that they offer. And so you might be a little dubious about that, right? I don't know what they're going to say, but this is what's so interesting. And when I first started getting into UFO studies, back in the 1990s, I went and saw Carol Rosen. And to this day, she has not changed one word of her testimony. And she was the assistant to Werner von Braun, the paperclip Nazi that came over here from Nazi Germany and started up NASA. Yeah. Well, he had a good life here and he became an American citizen and perhaps had a change of heart on his deathbed. And he would always tell Carol with his deathbed confessions that the last card that this global cabal is going to play is the fake alien invasion. And don't believe it. It's all going to be fake, but they need it to usher in the full implementation of this new world order, globalist agenda, get us off of cash and into CBDCs and lock us down if they need to and get us all rounded up into camps and so forth to depopulate the planet as well. There is definitely an anti-human depopulation agenda at hand. And I probably don't even need to tell everybody what's going on because they already know. And this is the reptilian agenda. I think they are the generals in this whole plan. But now that they have been removed, the very high cutout humans, such as the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, they're more like the colonels and the captains. But now they're very exposed. And we see how exposed they are. I mean, Jacob Rothschild just died, and a lot of that dynasty is now coming under fire. The BRICS nations are pulling away from the petrodollar, and there are major changes in the geopolitical front that suggest that the white hats are involved and they are manipulating the dark hats, and now without their fourth dimensional backup shadowing, that they're not so easily able to implement their plans. But they would try for one last Hail Mary pass, and that is what I think will be this Project Bluebeam.
And you think this is what makes you think it's going to be happening in the next few weeks?
Well, that's from a lot of other people who look at predictive analytics, such as Cliff High. He has this software that can pick up on the words people use on the internet. Just in the same way that right before 9/11, there was a huge emotional discharge that was palpable. It was discernible. It was picked up on these kind of programs. And so Cliff High is saying this is as big as 9/11, and it's supposed to happen starting around July 15th. So yeah, not even 2 weeks away, but it's going to be such a big event. Yeah, I know. You're going to be in America. We'll be at Mount Shasta. You're just flying back from Texas. And so maybe the opening salvos begin on the 15th. It's supposed to go for a couple weeks in July, towards the end of the month. But it's going to be something that people will be talking about for the rest of the year, just as they did with 9/11, just trying to figure out what happened. So this is Cliff High's data. Then you have all the remote viewers like Dick Algarve and the Farsight Institute. They've been targeting this date too. They're thinking it may be more like a missile going off, but then they're seeing that it's some kind of sky event too. And that's the word that keeps coming up, not Project Bluebeam, but a sky event. And could this be UFOs coming down, real or fake?
Is that seen from everywhere? Would everyone see it, or is it just for America, or what particular place or continent?
Well, as you know, everybody's got a cell phone these days, and they could hit record and film. I think it's primarily going to target America, but it could also very well include Europe. That's where the takedown is set to occur, because America is really the last holdout. We still have a Second Amendment. Most people have guns in this country. We're the only ones who could really put up a fight to this globalist takeover. So America has to go down. That's why the battle is coming here. Plus, we have this divided military. There are some in the white hat community, which are true to their constitutional oath, and then others who have sold out, and like the Air Force are still doing the chemtrail spraying. So there are dark elements in our military, and there's this major schism going on there too. So it'll be very interesting to see which sides the military takes on all this.
So do you think we'll see something at Shasta?
Maybe.
I mean, since there's supposed to be all these ETs there, maybe like some of the good ETs are going to come out the mountain. We're going to see them. Like, yeah, we're with you.
Well, fingers crossed that it's not a wartime scenario, but I've been to Shasta, as I said, many times, and we go up on the mountain up to Ski Bowl parking lot, and we'll do night watches there. And I have seen lights just kind of moving back and forth on the mountain, way up there. As I said, I climbed the mountain, and I know where the campsites are at Horse Camp and then Helen Lake, and this was way above it. In the middle of the night at about 12,000 feet. So it's over 14,000 foot mountain. So there's no way that could be flashlights or someone carrying a spotlight up. You got to come down from the summit. It gets very cold and windy up there. In fact, John Muir, the famous naturalist, got stuck up on Mount Shasta with his guide, and they got caught in a freak summer storm. And they just had to bundle themselves over this one volcanic heat vent at the top. And I saw it when I climbed it and put my pickaxe down into it. And it smells like sulfur, and it's got steam coming out. And that's saved John Muir's life. So you don't want to be up there at night. That's why when you see lights up there, it's something going on.
Wow. Well, there are all these amazing things, and they can, there are teleporting technologies for sure. I mean, I've had a couple of close encounters, and they got into my house, and they got into the other place that I was in, and they definitely teleported in. Wow. And I had physical evidence of it. I've had, a couple of close encounters. I had one was in Scotland when I was studying a course. And there were just these bright lights through the window, and it was full beam headlight, and there were no lights outside of the house, and it was on the first story. So second story, I think you call it differently, don't you? So like one level up, and there were no lights there. So and then there was just right through the curtains, and then every time I moved, it clicked on and clicked off, and then I woke up and went like this with my arms like that, and this bolt of energy came out, and it was about that. It was very thick.
Wow.
Across the room, like almost like X-Men style. Like this thing came out of me in 360 degrees, and then I had something fell over, And I rushed and turned the lights on. I couldn't see it. But my friends in the next door room, they had a chair with wooden arms, and there were scratch marks all the way down the wooden arms.
Wow.
Yeah. And then that was another one. And then I got another one where I think they tried to abduct me, or there was some situation where there were beings inside my house, and they moved the table, and I could hear like moving things moving around and running upstairs. And then I had a ball with cat treats had been knocked over, the table had been knocked over, the lights were switched on. Yeah. And then Lord Ashtar, I work with Lord Ashtar, who's one of my buddies who helps me a lot. And he beamed in, he teleported in, had a fight with them and arrested them. And I heard punches and stomping, and my cat was scared. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And then no windows were open, no doors were open, lights had been flicked on, tripped on as well. So yeah, so they can definitely get through walls.
Did you get the chance to see them, even in apparition form?
No, they didn't get inside my room. They didn't get inside my room. They were outside my bedroom door, and I was
pretty
scared, to be honest. I was, and I got rescued.
Do you have any idea what they might have wanted to do, or what they were there for?
I have a lot of magic. I have a lot of magic. I'm able to do a lot of things which other humans aren't able to do. I can, delete traumas and diseases pretty quickly. And I think they don't want that happening.
Divine empowerment.
Divine empowerment. Yeah, I can delete traumas and diseases. My newest thing is deleting all fear in pretty much one go. And fear is the linchpin of all the other emotions. So I'm able to do some really cool stuff. I've got reverse aging down. I do some pretty interesting, crazy, magical things. So I think they've just tried to come and kill me a number of times.
How do you do reverse aging?
I've raised the voltage of cells. So a friend of mine had a fight with a blender. She stuck her hand inside one of those soup maker blenders, and she mangled it, and it went necrotic, which, cell death, rotting flesh. And so I looked into the work of, my brain's gone, two scientists who were looking in Dr. I've forgotten their names. Anyway, they were talking about the voltage of cells. Dr. Becker and Dr. The other one I've forgotten. Anyway, well, they were looking into the voltage of cells, and they realized that if you were in very good health, you were not 70 to 90 millivolts. If you were in poor health, you were 30 to 50 millivolts. And if you were in bad health, it's 20 millivolts. And they managed to measure these with voltmeters. And then it was also about how regeneration works on salamanders. So on salamanders, you can cut off a salamander's leg, half an eyeball, and it regenerates their tail, it regenerates. And how does that work? So he ended up doing some experiments in the 70s where he ended up thinking about how does this work, and looked at the current around. He cut the leg of a salamander and looked at the electrical current around where the leg had formerly been, and realized that there was a current around the outside. And he thought, that's very interesting. Maybe I should recreate the current and cut the leg of a frog. And he did that, recreated the current, and the frog's leg grew back. So I had that in mind when my friend's finger was necrotic, and I created a new style of energy healing on the spot for her when she was in Italy and I was in England, and raised the voltage, and it looked like it was 20 millivolts. And I raised the voltage of it when I was live with her, and continued to raise the voltage of that. And that ended up, it regenerated. So after a week, she went back to the doctor, it was no longer necrotic. And over the last year and a half, it's grown back. And it was, there was no flesh in the middle of it, and it thickened out and regenerated. It just grew from the inside. Then she got her feelings back in it, because it did cut all the nerve endings off, and it regenerated. And I use the same energy on myself, and I've regenerated, and I look 10 years younger than I did 2 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
Wild. Yeah.
Great.
So I'm doing some interesting magic. Yeah, my new and I figured out what diseases are, how diseases work. I've figured out a lot of things, and it's
How do diseases work? I know that the word disease is dis-ease. So when the body is accumulating toxins or other dis-eases, it will create more disease.
Diseases come in three categories: a gas, a liquid, or a solid. And gas diseases are thought-based diseases. So when you hang around somebody who's sad or angry or upset, you spend 5 minutes with them, and they can radiate it. And an anxious person makes you feel anxious. Depressed person makes you feel depressed. It's literally in the air around them. It's like a gas. They kind of smell of it. So that's a gas-based disease. And then you've got the second layer, which is a liquid-based disease. A liquid-based disease would be something like backache. Its location moves an inch up, an inch down, left, right, moves around. The severity flows in and out. Sometimes a 10 out of 10, sometimes a 2 out of 10. It behaves like a fluid. A cyst is a literal ball of fluid. Blood diseases are liquid-based diseases. A lot of different things are pain things are liquid-based diseases. So what happens is we get fixated on something awful that happened to us, an emotional trauma that we get stuck in. That creates all this gas. When you've got too much gas in your sort of field, then it has to go to a specific location. The specific location depends on the quality of your thoughts, what you're thinking about. And then it's compressed. More and more thoughts of that gas, it runs out of space, it cools down and slow down and becomes a liquid. And it's compressed thoughts, compressed trauma and compressed thoughts. And then a tumor is the same thing. It's a solid-based disease. You press a tumor and it's rock hard, but that's a benign one. A malignant one, which is one which is actually burst, which is interesting because they normally are capsulated. They've got a capsule around the outside. And when this cancer starts spreading, it's because the capsule bursts and it starts seeping out all over the body. But it's compressed thoughts. It's people getting fixated and stuck in some awful tragedy that happened to them. And that's causing their diseases. I'm doing a study now where I'm going to work on 10,000 soldiers because I can delete PTSD. I've been able to delete PTSD for 15 years. And now I'm going to take it big because it's time to bring this out there, because there are so many soldiers and first responders who, and many, many other people who are suffering terribly. And I've had the tools to do that for 15 years. And it's now time to bring that into market. And I'm going to do a study for free for these first responders and military personnel, veterans and current personnel, because it's something I can do in 15 minutes, 20 minutes. In one session, it's gone. And it works, and it's never come back. In my experience, I've been deleting traumas for, as I said, 15 years at least, and it's never once come back, not once. And I've got students and they've all worked on people. It's never, ever come back. So the job now is to recruit all these different people and to write a big study. So that's what I'm up to, which is really fun.
Yeah. Well, would you say that most diseases are psychosomatic, that we're just...
Every single disease is psychosomatic. Everything is about you getting fixated on stuff. I think that you can have contributing factors like a poor diet is going to lower your system. You're not going to have as much life force and defense mechanisms if your body is full of toxins and if you're eating a load of rubbish.
True.
But it's all about you getting fixated on emotional stuff. I mean, that's going to add insult to injury, but it's the emotions that cause the disease for sure. And if you can delete the emotions, you can delete the disease. You can literally make things go away. And I've done instant healing of a lot of different diseases. I've been doing big jobs for a very, very long time. That's why they're after me.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
Are you one of the
results? And yeah, it's just a really lovely thing to be able to do. It's really empowering and it's really nourishing to the soul. And it's really time that these things get out there because there are just too many people suffering. And I feel a huge obligation and duty to bring this work out more. Yeah, so it's fun.
Are you going to be one of the speakers at Mount Shasta?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I'm teaching.
Well, I look forward to hearing your talk. This is really fascinating.
Yeah, I've got some interesting tools and I'm going to do some demonstrations there as well. I might delete all of fear. I don't know. Feels like I'm on the edge of being able to do either liquid or solid-based diseases pretty quickly. I mean, I had a friend of mine who had a benign uterine tumor and I worked on her and it was gone in 15 minutes. And I worked on her and she had pain and then the pain went and she went after 48 hours to get a scan, which she had a scan previously, and there was no trace of it on the scan, or there was just a shadow of it. They thought she'd been misdiagnosed. So I can do some mad stuff.
Fascinating. Oh, I look forward to it.
Anyway, I'm supposed to be interviewing you. So tell us more about some aliens.
The good ones or the bad ones or the ugly ones?
Do you know anything about Lord Ashtar? Because he's my buddy. He was the one who rescued me. So do you know much about him or not really?
Well, just Ashtar Command. They're also part of the Global Federation. They're the good guys. They're the ones who want to see Earth ascend. The humans. I mean, we're moving into fifth dimension. We're just going to jump frog over the fourth dimension.
Why are we not going into the fourth dimension? And why is everyone talking about the fifth dimension? Why are we leapfrogging over the fourth?
Well, if you know what's going on in the fourth, you would be able to perceive it when you go to the fifth. But fifth dimension is love, is compassion, is the higher emotions. And it's not to say we're all just going to disappear and move into another dimension. You're just going to have a lot more perceptions, a lot more human abilities. But the fourth dimension, especially the lower fourth dimension, the denser part of that, we can sometimes even catch glimpses of it. You can see a little orb flying by, or have a perception of speaking to entities that are no longer in physical body.
There's a lot of demons about, I do a lot of demon stuff. I do a lot of work with demons, and I've decided to take the high road on a lot of different things. And I realize, because a lot of the things is, I think the mind chatter, which is causing people to have the solid liquid gas-based diseases, because people get fixated on something, but the thing which is keeping them stuck in that place is actually this loosh system, which they're using the demons to be able to create the loosh. So what I do is I realize that there's a huge hierarchy with these different beings, and actually they're all slaves. And so I free them. I do a lot, and I was a massive slayer, but then that's quite dangerous, not so much for me, but for people around me. So instead of slaying them, now I free them, but I go and build them different planets and different universes and different areas, because actually they don't all get along. And I actually teleport a lot of beings to a lot of different places. I do a lot of rescue stuff, which is, I've decided to be a divine travel agent rather than a slayer, because I like it when everybody wins. So, but I work with a lot of them all the time, and there's still a lot. There's still a lot of negative or slave beings who are around. I mean, I've teleported billions of them, but there's still a lot of them at play. So why is that all going on?
Well, what people need to understand is, while we can only catch little glimpses of the fourth dimension, we're pretty much locked in this very dense third dimensional reality.
Yeah.
But in the lower fourth dimension, that's where your ghosts are. That's where your mystical beings that we've heard about through fairy tales. I think they're real in the fourth dimension. The fairies, the goblins, the leprechauns, even these other entities that can exist there. Even, as you mentioned, the loosh, the archons, who feed off of negative human emotion. So people that are really encumbered with fear or anger, they're providing loosh, or providing food to this archonic network. And that's really one of the challenges the human race has to grow out of, because it's really a planet in fear. In macro terms, the ET races can see that we're a very fearful race. We're very superstitious. We still believe in a lot of this old mythology. But the lower fourth dimension, that's also where the reptilians can exist, and the gray aliens, they too can phase in and out of reality. And where they're going is just into this lower fourth dimensional realm. I've heard the example is, if you were perceptive and you could see this world, it would kind of be like you're driving along at night in a city, and you take the wrong exit and you find yourself in the deep part of the ghetto, and you're just looking in amazement at what you're seeing. Oh my God, this is scary out there. And you lock your doors, like, let's get out of here. And you can see it, you can observe it, but you don't really want to be a part of it. That's why we don't really want to become fourth dimensional entities. We want to leapfrog it right into the 5D.
Yeah. Did you hear about the night vision goggles story, which is fascinating? They in Vietnam, they were developing night vision goggles, and you know that they have green, the sights are green to see out of night vision. When they were developing them, they weren't entirely sure which way to go, because the colors, you can either go red or green with the because green switches to red when you go below like 15 or 30 meters or something. Colors colors change around, so they're the other opposite end of the spectrum. So they developed red ones as well as green ones at the time, and they had them out in Vietnam, and there were people who were shooting wildly in the air with these night vision glasses because they could see demons. They
Wow.
saw red night vision. You can see demons in them. Yeah.
Mm.
I kind of want to try them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I know some people in Sedona, Arizona that do night watch tours, and they use those night vision goggles. I've done it with them, and every single night they're seeing something up there. There really is a battle also going on in near Earth orbit. And these people that do these UFO Sedona Skywatch tours, they offer a money back guarantee that if you don't see something that night, we'll give you your money back. And they've never refunded a single person. So it's going on every single night. Now, Sedona is a very special place. It's called the Crystal City. It is the 5-dimensional reality, which is coming into fruition. It is discernible that this is a very special place, but there's also a dark side to it, that there are underground bases there. I'm really good friends with the remote viewer named Tom Dongo. He lives there, and we were speaking at a conference about a year ago, and he was saying that he knew some police in Clarkdale, a nearby town to Sedona, who got tipped off that there was this entrance into an underground base. And these Clarkdale police officers decided to go down there. We didn't know there was anything here. Well, we better go check it out. They're going down there. Next thing they know, all of these special op guys who are wearing all black and body armor come with guns, and there's kind of like a Mexican standoff for a second. And they said, "Who are you?" "Well, who are you?" "We're Clarkdale police." "What are you doing down here?" "Well, we just got tipped off that there was this entrance and we're just investigating." They said, "You get out of here right now." And they did, and there were no loss of life. And they told Tom Dongo about this, and then Tom was at the conference, and he's saying, yeah, there's more bases underneath Sedona than you're aware of. And so my question to him was, well, who are they? You told us that there were the military down there. Yeah. I said, are there good ones? Yeah. Are there bad ones? Yeah. And that's kind of the story of our lives, even at Mount Shasta. Good ones, bad ones, and U.S. military all are under Mount Shasta. The good ones live in a community called Telos. And this is where you hear about Philos. He occasionally will meet some of the hikers on Mount Shasta, and he'll play his musical instrument, open up a door, and invite them to come take a tour of Telos. Lowell Johnson was one of those who went in there. Yeah. There's also a reptilian base there, the very dark energy. You know, the throat of the volcano in Mount Shasta goes down not just hundreds or thousands of feet, but it goes down miles. It's huge, goes well into inner Earth. And so there's plenty of room for all of these entities to exist. And I think there's still tickets available to the Mount Shasta Summer Conference. If you use my name, Brad, or Antonia, you get a discount on your ticket. So you should come out there. But I drove around the mountain one time, and on the east-facing slope, you see all these barbed wire fences and signs, U.S. military, do not enter, just like Area 51. So there's also a human element to it as well.
Wow. I'm excited to explore Mount Shasta. I've not been there before.
Never been there, huh? Wow, you're in for a treat. You're going to love it.
Yeah. What about the Grand Canyon? Do you think why is it that we're not allowed into so many areas there? I was just I saw something earlier, which was saying that there might be pyramids there. And there was a particular way that they took an image of it, and it kind of looks like the Sphinx. Anything around that? And
yeah, I've seen those pictures too. I think that's what's known as pareidolia, when you can see things in the mountain faces, and people do that in Sedona too, do whole tours on it.
Mm.
I'm not so much a subscriber into that they were manufactured and sketched or carved into the rocks. What I do know is there is a very extensive cave system in the Grand Canyon.
Mm.
And I was on a show with Dr. Salla talking about it because his contact, JP, who's an Army Special Ops guy, he went down there. They had an assignment to go in there, and then he reported to Dr. Salla that he saw these artifacts that are in there from the Kincaid expedition, the second group going down the Grand Canyon after John Wesley Powell, who was the first. And he must have seen these cave entrances. I think recently they have been caved in, because I went down in 2003 on a 21-day rafting expedition. I was keenly aware that they were there, and I asked my guide, can we see them? No, you can't. I even wanted to go see the Sipapu, the emergence point of the Hopi Indians, which is just up the Little Colorado Canyon 2 miles, and wouldn't take us there either. So there are areas in the Grand Canyon, especially on the north side of the canyon, that are definitely off limits. I know some people who have flown a drone over that area before they outlawed it, and they got some images of other cave entrances to the Kincaid cave system, where in a newspaper called the Arizona Gazette, they wrote a full article, detailed article about the Kincaid expedition going into these caves and finding Far Eastern artifacts. They didn't say the word Egyptian specifically, but they did say mummified giants. And I think that's what people took to believe as Egyptian artifacts, but a whole bunch of stuff. And JP said he saw it too. And that's why they have to keep this very much top secret. But
well, it's I mean, giants just ruins the Darwinian theory. That's one of the big problems, isn't it? Do we believe in giants? And maybe are some dinosaur bones giants? Is that what people are thinking?
No, they found skulls that are very human-like. For example, you can go to Paracas, Peru. There's a whole museum with dozens of these elongated heads, where the heads go back, way back here, 30 to 35% larger cranial capacity than a human skull. I do a conference presentation on the giants and show all the evidence, show the bones, show the best evidence for it. And the thing is, with these elongated skulls, there is what's known as cranial deformation. Yeah, you can wrap a skull, you can put a board on it. There's the Flathead Indians of Idaho that do that. They can change the structure of their head. But what you cannot do is add 30% larger cranial capacity. You know, you can move around what you have already, but you can't add 30% brain matter and 30% larger skull. You can't add to what you already have. So that's why these skulls that are on display in Paracas, and I saw them in the Sacred Valley of Peru, and other museums have them too. The people in South America, especially in Peru and Bolivia, we're contacted. We see the light beings all the time, and they used to live here. And our Incan ancestors used to dress up like them and did cranial deformation to look like them, to make their heads more cone head like. But you go to those museums and it's just, how can you discount the fact that they have these giant heads, the skulls, on display? And not only that, but they don't have the central suture, the crack that kind of goes up between the head right here in the forehead that humans have. They have 30% larger eye sockets and a 30% larger connection to the spinal cord. So they're human-like, and some of them still have their red hair and a little bit of flesh. They're very human-like, but they're not human. And so Brian Forrester and Klaus Dana and Lloyd Pye, who had the Star Child skull, and he was going around to conferences and showing that.
He
They
was
did
in
DNA
Everything
tests
You
on
Think You
all
Know
of
Is
these.
Wrong. I remember his documentary, Everything You Think You Know Is Wrong, about the human. That
Yeah.
was a fascinating one. Yeah.
So they're not dinosaur bones. They're just very large human-like bones. But it was really fascinating, their findings. All three of them, Klaus Dana, Brian Forrester, and Lloyd Pye, all found that it was a human mother, but an unknown father. So just like it says in the Bible that the men of renown came down and they saw that the earth women were pretty and they mated with them, and that their offspring were also these royalty and giants,
Nephilim.
the Nephilim. I think it's quite clear that this is what it's describing in the first chapters of the Bible when it talks about giants specifically. And so an example that I give when I do my talks on the giants, and I'm a very tall guy too. I mean, maybe people say, oh, you just talk about it because you're tall. No, I think it's a part of untold history. It's a part of these esoteric studies. And look, so much of our history has been just deleted. We're not getting the truth. So therefore, I love to talk about it. I love to learn more about it. And the example I give is you can have two similar species, such as a donkey and a horse, and they can actually mate, and their offspring is a mule.
Sure.
But the mule is then it can't reproduce anymore.
Yeah.
It's sterile. And I think that's what happened with the Nephilim, that they could live very long lives, but they couldn't reproduce and maintain their species that way. And so they were largely one-off, and they eventually all died out. But the Anunnaki are also very, very large. And my colleague Billy Carson's just came out with his new series on the Anunnaki. I went to the premiere in Las Vegas last month. And it's fascinating. There's just so much evidence that this tall human-like race of beings came to Earth and did what they had to do. That was mining the gold and also mating with our Earth women. And, you know.
I just wondered if the Earth women were smaller and they were bigger. How did that work?
The birds and the bees, Antonia. I don't know. I mean, they made it work somehow.
I don't know. And how did they give birth to giants if they're just normal human women? They must have had
maybe a C-section, or maybe it killed the Earth women. I don't know. But I'll tell you, the elongated skull we saw in the Sacred Valley, and I actually met the archaeologist who found it. He had the museum there, and I did a short interview with him, and he said that he was going up very, very high elevation at about 13,000 feet at the top of one of these mountains overlooking the Sacred Valley in Peru, which goes up to Cuzco, and all the megalithic buildings there. Is just amazing. It's clearly otherworldly how they built these structures that still remain to this day. So not only the giants, but the megaliths is just really mind-blowing when you see it with your own eyes. But he said he went up to this, it was a royal burial ground at 13,000 feet elevation. He was doing some excavation. Mostly Incan royal family were buried there. But then he came across this elongated body, and he had the whole body intact, and it was just an adolescent. It was young, and it was ritually sacrificed, because you could see someone took a bat to the back of the head and just shattered its head and killed it. But it was mummified, it was buried with funerary objects, and it was buried with other Incan kings, showing that they had a very high esteem for this, but for whatever reason, it was killed. It was sacrificed. But here's what's so amazing: when you see this thing, the head was as large as the torso, and you can just see my head and my torso. It's maybe 1/4 of my torso. This was the same size. That's how big these heads were.
You'd have to have a strong neck for that.
Yeah, strong neck. So I think when they came out the birthing canal, yeah, that big head, if the head were able to come out, then maybe the body could too.
They probably had
And
some amazing technology to make it work. All the women died, as you
yeah,
said.
yeah, or maybe they got him close to giving birth and they just sacrificed the woman and took the baby out. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, they very much looked down on the humans. They enslaved us. You could look at South Africa. Michael Tellinger has done a lot of research. He's from there
Yeah, yeah.
on the ancient gold mines, and it was using slave labor. And Zecharia Sitchin says, and he interpreted the cuneiform Sumerian script and said that that humans were actually a creation way, way, way back when. This is so many thousands of years before these elongated skulls mixed with human DNA to create a hybrid of sorts, but that humans were just these proto bipedal, like Lucy, the Australopithecus africanus, the first bipedal monkey. But they were too stupid to take orders and work in the gold mines. So they were genetically manipulated with higher life form DNA to create Homo sapiens. So we were smart enough to take orders and go dig out the gold, which apparently they needed for their planet.
Their atmosphere, yeah.
But dumb enough not to question authority. And so that's where I think the root of the word Lord comes from. You know, everything is I pray to the Lord. And in the UK, you have the House of Lords. And the Lord is this larger than human life being that we're all meant to worship. But in Christianity, it's kind of invisible, very opaque as to who this Lord is. But I think it was the giants of old that this word is just a throwback from those times.
And we're waking up now, are we? So do you think we've had dormant DNA from the Anunnaki and now it's starting to, are we going to be as smart as them, or how's that all working? Hello.
Well, humans are getting taller. I mean, even in Asia, you've got 6 foot tall and taller. Some are basketball players. Now let's make a distinction here. You can have tall humans like me, but I've only got size 13 feet. Shaq O'Neal is size 22, and others who have gigantism, which is the pituitary gland, usually a cancer on the pituitary gland that just continually makes that person grow. The tallest person in recorded history is 8'11". That's Robert Waldo in Alton, Illinois, about 100 years ago. And he certainly had that, and he grew his whole life until it finally killed him. The weight of his body just basically collapsed on his organs. I wonder
why we stopped growing. I think there's something there, like I'm always decoding and messing around with our energy systems. And I think that we shouldn't stop growing. And I also think that the menstrual cycle ending, menopause, is some sort of fiddle around with us that we don't need menopause. And I don't think we should necessarily stop growing. Why do we stop growing? And
there are animals that continue to grow their entire life.
Yeah.
Intermediate growers, I think they're called, crocodiles, alligators, some sharks, pythons will continue to grow. When the first humans were going into the Amazon jungle and deep into the Congo, they would just find some of these reptile animals that are just dinosaur size, maybe a throwback from the dinosaurs. Now, Edgar Cayce said that in the time of Atlantis, they were having discussions how to eradicate all the dinosaurs on Earth because it was a big problem for them. They couldn't really go down into the jungles. That's why they had their sky cities and out on the islands to be away from the dinosaurs. So there's pretty good evidence that some of these species, which are crypto species, have existed and came into even this modern age. I have a picture from Tombstone, Arizona, with 8 cowboys holding up the wings of a pterodactyl. And that's also the legend of the Thunderbirds throughout the Southwest, all the way into Illinois. In fact, in Alton, Illinois, I speak at a conference there called Journey to Truth. I was just there in May, and we went to this cave where this paisa bird was said to exist, this thunderbird that could eat humans and take them back into this cave. And there's still a depiction of this man-eating bird on the walls of the cave there. And it's huge, ginormous, 10-story tall cave system.
Wow. I think we need to finish our interview because we've run on quite a long time. You are absolutely fascinating. And I would like to do it again because you're just a wealth of information. It's wonderful speaking with you. Okay, let's talk about the conference. Tell me about what are you doing at the conference in Mount Shasta, the Promise Revealed? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I have 3 presentations I'm giving, including one is I'm going to moderate a panel. I think we're talking about aliens. Maybe you're on that panel. I hope so. You seem to know a lot. And I will I'll also be giving a free talk. I think might be doing the Giants as my free talk. And then I'm doing a workshop called The Hidden Esoteric in Plain Sight. How so much of this stuff is just right there in your face. And you never really put 2 and 2 together until you see those hidden clues they put out there. Because on a free will planet such as ours, we all have the opportunity to make our own decisions. But if we're influenced in such a way that we make a wrong decision, well, that's on us. And that's what this very occultic cabal has done for quite a long time. So I just show all those signs of how we've been manipulated and how they just put it in movies, TV shows, products on our money and currency. And once you see it, you'll never forget it. So I would encourage people to come to my workshop. I think you can come for free because you're a speaker.
Thank you.
And I've been giving this talk at a couple other big conferences, and people just say, wow, that was mind blowing. Yeah. I never knew. And you don't know until you see it. So that's why I think this is an important talk.
I'm teaching my level one magic, which you learn how to dissolve traumas and do things like change the taste of wine using magic. So I've got some teaching level 1 magic as well there. So you're welcome to come to that if you'd like to. That's going to be fun. Okay. Nice. So any final words of wisdom you have for my lovely audience?
Oh, just that we're in some very interesting times. It's a great time to be alive, to witness.
That's a Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.
Yeah, that's right. It's a curse and a blessing, right? At the same time. But we are witnessing the absolute transformation of humanity as the light bearers on the surface of this planet. We're finally getting the opportunity to manage this planet without interference, and just hang in there. Just grab some popcorn and watch the show, because this is going to be an amazing next couple years. So you want to stick around and see how this one ends, because I do believe it'll have a positive ending, but we're going to go through the dark night of the soul, which is when you think all is lost and we're going to be totally screwed by this Project Blue Beam and the globalist takeover. At the very end, it just collapses and boom, we're out of it. And then we move into a golden age. So it's just having consciousness of that event, of all these things that are to happen. That's all you have to do. That's the only skin in the game you need to have, is just be aware that we are at a period of the Great Awakening, of great changes on this planet. And to play my small part as an author and conference speaker and talk on interviews, I'm just glad to help. I'm in service to all, and to have that kind of free your karma from many lifetimes on planet Earth. And this is another discussion we could have perhaps on another show.
Do that again. Yeah.
I've
got ways of doing that.
Yeah, where you can free yourself. You do not have to be reborn on planet Earth. In fact, not many will. So get it right this lifetime and do the best you can and be in service to others, and good things will happen as a result.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Brad. This has been absolutely fascinating, and I appreciate you joining me today. And I look forward to meeting you next week.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Also, if people want to check out my books, that's on cccpublishing.com. And if they order any of my books, they come through my office here in Nevada, and I'll be able to sign copies for people as well. And if you want to find out more about my conference schedule, check out bradolsen.com, and there it is on the ticker tape. Go to those two websites, and you'll learn more about me than maybe you want to know. But just here, putting myself out there and doing the best I can to be in service.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brad, and goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining me today.